If you were going to tell me that the latest Netflix animated movie was going to comment on inclusion, social justice, the school to prison pipeline, as well as unfettered capitalism, I probably wouldn't believe you. But nope, that's Wendell and Wild, and we're going to talk about that right now. Hi, my name is Matt Jarbo. This is Patio Commentary, and I just sat down to watch Netflix's latest Wendell and Wild, a animated movie from Henry Selick, who is the director, yes, the director of The Nightmare Before Christmas, James and the Giant Peach, as well as Coraline. All three excellent stop motion animated movies, and an auteur that is wildly underappreciated in modern day, if you want my honest opinion. We still go back nearly 30 years to watch Nightmare Before Christmas every single year, and it never gets old. It's still just a timeless classic. And then we go and we look at James and the Giant Peach as being just another fun stop motion movie that I would argue is probably the most underrated of his work, simply because it doesn't get talked about enough. But then you get to Coraline from the late 2000s, and that movie is just so good, so great, so good. I was very excited when I heard that he was going to be coming in to work on this new movie called Wendell and Wild with Jordan Peele and Keegan-Michael Key. And I was like, great, this is going to be something that's going to be really interesting, really poignant, and probably have a lot to say. The truth of the matter is, it did, even though it is wildly uneven, very confusing at times, and even looking online trying to get some explanations for certain plot points, I'm coming up with bupkis, but I'm going to talk about that with the story. The best way to summarize the story here is that Kat is a little girl who blames herself for her parents' death. In the interim, she finds herself going through foster homes that simply only want to do it for money. They don't actually try to raise her at all. She ends up pushing a bully down a flight of stairs, nearly killing him. That sends her to jail. From there, she eventually gets accepted into the Break the Cycle program, which takes her back to the hometown where her parents died and puts her in a Catholic all-girls school in order to, get money from the government as a way to try to reform her inside of what would be a nurturing environment versus the cold, hard prison system. All the while, the family trying to buy up the town, the Claxons, which are basically just, Donald and Melania Trump. Again, look at them for yourself and you'll be like, yes, indeed. Very true. This is what they're going for. They want to buy the city, destroy the city to build up their own prison in order to bus kids into the school, fail them at the school with that program, and then basically slide them right down into the private prison where they get to make millions upon millions of dollars from the state. All the while, Wendell and Wild, the two demons living in the underworld, have been banished to their father's nose where they are held in prison because they wanted to build their own theme park, which he viewed as an insurrection against the one that's currently on his belly. And they have dreams of grandeur in order to build their own park, but they need to get up to the real world in order to be able to get the money to pay for it. So Kat discovers she's a Hell Maiden who then summons Wendell and Wild. They come up, they resurrect a whole bunch of people in an attempt to work with the Claxons in order to usurp the current city council who wants to stop the private prison from being built. And then from there, everybody has to kind of work together to stop the zombie army from tearing down the city and proving that the Claxons are horrible people who more or less burned down the brewery, causing the city to go into utter chaos and darkness. And they all kind of succeed at the end of the day. The story is interesting. And I say interesting, it's kind of easy to follow at points, not easy to follow at other points. There's a lot of high concept ideas that Henry Selick and Jordan Peele were working on when they were writing this thing. I obviously get what they were trying to say. I get the ideas that they were trying to espouse. The problem, though, is that the main issue where they fail is talking about just what the hell a Hell Maiden is. I even Googled what is a Hell Maiden following the release of this movie, figuring there would be a ton of freaking articles with the ending explained, and they just go, Kat says she's a Hell Maiden. Well, what exactly is a Hell Maiden? Unless I missed it, it's not very well explained in any of the literature I've been able to find following watching this movie. She's clearly got the power of precognition. She has the ability to see the future. She gets marked by Beelzebub, which is the little bear, stuffed teddy bear owned by Manberg, who apparently is like a demon hunter. And he works with Sister Helly, who has the ability to kind of like travel as like a shadow light centipede type creature. And she's also a Hell Maiden, but we don't know anything about her backstory or anything about why Kat was chosen or anything that's going on with any of what you could argue would be the most interesting mystical side of the plot, right? And I think that's not, maybe that's done on purpose, because obviously the concept here is talking about the Klaxons and how they have, you know, murdered the priest voiced by James Hong, because, you know, he basically was like, you guys aren't going to get the votes that you need and blah, blah, blah. And then he gets resurrected by Wendell and Wild. So then he brings them on in to work with the Klaxons in order to, you know, get the votes that they need by bringing back the dead. And yet it's like when you have the city council scene and all the zombies walk in, one of the council members is apparently a doctor, and he's like, it's my professional opinion that these people are alive. Like, really, doc? Just right off the bat, you're just going to completely validate their existence because, well, you know, we need to move the plot along, obviously. But the whole time, the mom of Raoul, a trans boy in the school, which I thought was interesting that they actually had that as a prominent character and it was wildly accepted. No one said anything against it, which was actually really cool. Like I said, this is wildly inclusive as far as the movie goes. It's very interesting how they did it. And it's not done in a way where you feel like, oh, yeah, this is like super, 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 you know, like on the nose. They really just kind of have it be part of the world. No one ever really has to go in to explain it. And I think that works out well for trying to showcase an inclusive environment. When you don't have to beat someone over the head with your message, it really goes a long way in solidifying that message in the subconscious, which would then make its way out later on. They definitely didn't do that when it came to the concept of the prison industrial complex. And that is something that's wildly okay with me. That is something that is a major problem. We know that there's very little reform that goes on in prisons, especially private prisons. It is an ongoing social issue here in this country, and it's one that this movie tackles straight on, and I give them a ton of props for doing it in a way where, yeah, I think anyone watching will really get what they're trying to say on that, even if arguably the more interesting plots of the film, which would be like your A and B stories, so Kat's story as well as Wendell and Wild's story, kind of ends up falling apart towards the end of the movie because you're just like, they're trying to get to the message and they kind of forget in some ways to like really solidify the rest of it. Like in the final battle scene, you know, you have these three bulldozers somehow controlled by zombies that are risen from the dead with these this magical hair cream, and it eventually wears off, but they definitely were resurrected far before, you know, Kat's parents were, and they're having no problem moving around. And Kat's parents are there with like a pile of snowballs, and they're throwing snowballs at these bulldozers. And I was just watching that like, what? Okay. Like the movie got kind of exhausting towards the end because you're just like, it just kind of went everywhere and it needed to be a lot tighter. The movie comes in at about an hour and 45. It should have probably been about an hour and a half, if not maybe 85 minutes at max, to really tighten up the pacing, tighten up the plot. And the fact that they don't explain what Hell Maidens are or whatever the hell that whole side of it is and what Kat's power is and why she has it or why she was chosen, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. Never mind the whole storyline with the demon dad and him seeing a piece of art that was really cool by Raoul, and then it going like, man, I really am just a terrible father. Like, it's just instant, you know, I'm coming back around on this thing. I just, the last act of the movie kind of falls apart, even though the emotional message is there, the resonance is there, what their overall message is, I think works really well. It's just kind of a mess to get to it. And that, of course, is really unfortunate. But then again, these are just my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know down in the comments. I'll talk to you guys later, and peace out.